aka Cassandra Lynn, and welcome to Legal Doc Talk 24/7. Hey guys, so let's tap into this money Mayweather uh, fiasco. That's what I'm going to call it. Um, in my research, I have found so many lawsuits, so many tax liens, so many default judgments from those lawsuits. It's bewildering. Like, literally, Blueface has nothing on Floyd Money Mayweather. Let's get started with the first order of business. I do want to talk to you guys about the fraud criminal charges that was brought against him by the state of Nevada. It is mind boggling to see that this man who is worth so much money be in so much debt. So much debt. So, with this particular case, the state of Nevada filed a criminal complaint against Money Mayweather back on April 26, 2026. As of right now, there was an initial appearance on June the 15th at 9 a.m. The matter was heard, and now it has been set to the preliminary hearing on September 17th. So there is um, a couple of months for the prosecution to hand over anything by the defense attorney's request. So any evidence that they have, they can submit over to the defense counsel for review. But it is just very strange that this man is out here writing checks and there's no money in his account. And as we go through the different areas that I'm going to talk about today, you guys are going to kind of understand what's happening to his money. But the Clark County prosecutors, they filed two felony charges. The theft of property valued over $100,000, and then a passing of a check with an intent to defraud. And this is after he wrote a $200,000 Wells Fargo check for a watch to purchase a watch, but it bounced on New Year's Eve in 2024. Now, what are the penalties for these two felony charges? So, first, if you pass a check with an intention to defraud anything that's valued over $1,200, it is considered a Category D felony and it carries a prison sentence for up to 4 years and a fine up to $5,000. For the theft that's valued more than $100,000 or greater, the prison sentence is up to 20 years in a Nevada state prison, and the fines are $15,000. So that is what is going on with this particular criminal case out of Nevada. So there's bad checks that were written. Obviously, the check bounced for the watch that he's written. And the next hearing is going to be the preliminary hearing to see if they have enough evidence to even go forth with this particular case. So I'm going to keep you guys updated once we get closer to that preliminary hearing that is scheduled for September 17th, 2026. The next order of business is unpaid rent. Unpaid rent. This case is out of New York. So, our good man, Mr. Floyd Money Mayweather, he entered into a contract lease with Perpetual Love Investments in the condo. So, I believe it's either an apartment or a condo in New York, Manhattan. Okay. He entered into this lease back on, and I have it on the screen, on November 11th, 2024. The lease expired November 10th, 2025, but the tenant held over and is still in possession of the apartment. Mind you, he signed the lease November 11th, 2024. He has not paid rent for the months of July, August, September, October, and November of 2025. So what did they do? Anytime that you're late on something, they're going to send what's called a demand letter, or in their case, a final invoice. They said, "Hey, Floyd, look, with all the late rent and the late charges that are is attached to that, you have until December 10th, 2025 to pay $515,834.25. Now, if he pays back all of the rent plus the late charges, he can voluntarily vacate the apartment on or before December 2nd. So, pretty much what they're saying is if he would have paid everything on or before December 2nd, they wouldn't have even gone through the route of filing a lawsuit against him. Now, let's see. I am going to go down to what it said that he owed. Now, this was the settlement agreement. So, this is the settlement agreement that he actually signed on November 24th, 2025. So, this was in hopes that he actually made sure that he paid that amount. So, that was 500 and something dollars. So, now I am going to show you guys the actual submissions that they sent over to the court. So what they did is, because he did not pay what he was supposed to pay by December, they went ahead and they filed a lawsuit against him. What happens when Floyd gets a lawsuit served to him? He doesn't answer. And what happens when you don't answer to a lawsuit? That results in a default judgment. So what the court did, the court went ahead and allowed for the plaintiff, perpetual love, whatever they're called, perpetual love investments here. They allowed for them to file a motion for default judgment. So here doesn't show exactly. I think they filed it, something happened, they had to refile it, correct it, and then refile it. But here are all the exhibits that they submitted. So they submitted the summons with the notice, the affidavit of service showing that he did get a copy of this. They also provided a copy of the lease showing that he did enter into a contract with them back in 2024. They submitted the settlement agreement. You always have to submit a non-military search and report just in case. You never want to sue somebody that is in the military and they're overseas and you can't properly serve them. But that's a whole different explanation. But they submitted that. They also submitted their uh, attorney fees. So on top of, filing this lawsuit, doing service, getting their rent money and the late charges, they also want to recuperate any attorney expenses that they actually accrued from filing this particular lawsuit. Now, what I do want to bring to you guys' attention is the document or the affidavit that was submitted to support their motion for default judgment. Give it time to pull up. So while that's pulling up, this is an affidavit by one of the property managers. They pretty much stated that they did enter into a contract with Floyd Money Mayweather in 2024. They also came to a settlement agreement before they to file a lawsuit against him. They stated that he was in agreement to pay $515,000 to them before they even filed the. So here is just kind of confirming everything and much stating what they're seeking. So they are seeking $337, 736 3,000 37,736 $36.13. That's how much they are seeking. So that means between November and whenever they filed this notice, I believe it was initially in February, he paid some of the balance that was due. So now they're only seeking the $337,000 versus the $515,000. So this man is aware that he has this debt. He's fully aware he has this debt. Why he hasn't paid it is unknown to anybody. But we're going to kind of see in a minute possibly why he's not having access to any of his funds in order to pay off these judgments. So that is the amount that he is owed, well, not he's owed, that he owes the condominium uh, leasing partners $337,000 in New York. I don't even think he even stayed in New York, to be honest. Like, it's crazy how much money you have to where you could just go and say, okay, I'm gonna sign a lease over here in another state and never even stay there. But that's neither here nor there. All right. Going on to the next order of business. Child support. Child support. I had to do a little bit of research on this particular one, but I'm just going to read from my notes what I have found out. So I want to say back in 2000 and either 21 or 22, I believe it was 21, he entered into, I don't even know if it was a long-term relationship or just a one night stand or just a couple of nights with Miss Paige Moorhead. And she ended up having a child. And shortly after, she filed a complaint in the court requesting child support. But before you even do that, you have to establish paternity. So no, it's actually June of 2023. So June of 2023, she filed a lawsuit. He was served. In that service, as far as the documents, the judge states, hey, you have to submit to a DNA testing. But guess what Floyd did? He didn't comply with that. And what happens when you don't comply with that or even acknowledge the lawsuit? You end up in a default judgment in which the judge actually granted. On top of that, the judge declared him the legal father of Moorhead's child. On top of that, he ordered for him to pay $32,000, to be exact, $32,850 per month, with nearly $100 million as far as arrearage, or AKA back child support. The exact number, $933,050 is what he owes in back child support. Okay? Here is the icing on the cake. The judge authorized Miss Page to go ahead and place a $2 million lien on all of his California properties. So not only do you have darn near $1 million in back child support ongoing, you got to pay approximately 33,000 per month. And here's the kicker. If you don't pay that back child support, you get interest slapped on that each year. No, actually each month. Each month. So you have $1 million in arrears plus interest plus the $32,000 in a month. And if you don't pay that, that just that just accrues. But the crazy part is a 200 or I'm sorry, a $2 million lien on his California properties. And I kid y'all not, I did a search just in Nevada for liens against Floyd Mayweather, there was pages. There were pages. Unfortunately for California, I can't see the lien unless I can pull up the document in which I would have to have the case number and all that other stuff. And I'm not going to do that. Just know he has liens out there. This man has liens out there. And it's only a matter of time before Miss Moorhead goes ahead and files that lien against him. And that's just going to be on top of everything else that he has on his plate, y'all. And seriously, that's going to be everything that he has on his plate. What I do want to show you guys, and I'm not sure if you guys are able to see this, but let me pull something up right quick. I did post it on my Instagram, and we're going to now talk about his tax liens since we're on that subject. So, in addition to the $2 million tax lien that might get imposed on his California property, this man now has to worry about all of his Nevada assets because what did the IRS do? The IRS slapped on a federal tax lien. Yep. And guess how much? Roughly $7.3 million. I'm about to say billion, but $1 million. That's right. The IRS filed a $7.3 million tax lien covering unpaid federal taxes tied from 2018 and 2023. So he paid 19, 20, 21, 22, but for some reason, the tax years 2018, 2023, they were unpaid. 2018 alone was roughly $3 million of unpaid. That was his balance. 2023, roughly $4 million. So now that the IRS and this is not the first time, y'all. Going on to that lien search for Nevada, I don't know about California, but for Nevada, he has several IRS tax liens that has been issued against him. But because the IRS has done this, that gives the government authority to pursue your assets. So anything that Floyd has in his name is subject to be seized in order to cover this $7.3 million tax lien. So $2 million coming from child support, $7.3 million coming from this tax lien. All of the lawsuits that I have covered, well, no, that I have discovered, not covered, but discovered, he has a lot of default judgments, y'all. And each of those default judgments, people are filing writ of executions in order to recover those funds to satisfy those judgments. So, really, Blueface has nothing on Floyd. Floyd is probably, I would say, probably over $50 million in debt, literally, literally. And this is mind-boggling. I can't believe this. So now we have to think about what is going on to where this man owes all of this. Okay, so let's get into these lawsuits now. There are three lawsuits that I'm going to briefly talk about. I'm going to save the best for last. The first lawsuit is against Showtime. And this initially started in the Superior Court in California, but has now been moved to federal court. But Floyd Mayweather ended up suing Showtime Network. And I'm just going to kind of read the introduction so you guys can kind of get an idea of what's going on. But I want you all to really pay attention to the details in these petitions because when I read them, I strongly believe that the individuals that Floyd had in his circle that were supposed to manage him on his bank accounts, or his advisors, they didn't do him no justice. In fact, in my personal opinion, I believe that they really stole from him, to be honest. And that had a trickle effect as to why people weren't getting paid. Um, you know, he's probably saying, "Hey, make a check out, or pay my child support," and it's not getting paid because these people are spending money or taking care of whatever they got going. So pay attention to these three lawsuits that I'm about to tap into, because you're going to understand what's really going on. This particular lawsuit, as I stated before, is against Showtime, and he filed this lawsuit back in February. So this action seeks to recover, and I'll blow this up so everybody can read along. All right, so this action seeks to recover hundreds of millions of dollars in misappropriated funds and damages resulting from a long running and elaborate scheme of financial fraud, breaches of fiduciary duty, and conspiracy orchestrated by Floyd Mayweather's former manager and advisor, keyword advisor, Al Heyman, with the knowing and substantial participation and aid of defendants Showtime Network and Steven Espinoza, among others. So I'm pretty sure once discovery comes out, I'm pretty sure others will be updated in this complaint. Mayweather, a legendary professional boxer, was systematically deprived of a significant portion of his career earnings, at least $340 million, and potentially far more when accounting for lost investment growth, through a complex web of hidden accounts, unauthorized transactions, and deliberate concealment of financial records. Defendant Showtime and Espinoza, who was then the president of Showtime Sports, played a critical role in facilitating this misconduct. It is alleged that they diverted funds intended for Mayweather into accounts controlled by Heyman or his agents, claimed that critical financial records for Mayweather's biggest fights were lost or inaccessible, and failed to provide transparency despite clear contractual obligations and repeated requests for accounting. By wiring fight proceeds to accounts not directly accessible by Mayweather, such as an account at First Security Bank of Nevada, held by counsel retained by Heyman, and by later asserting defenses like statute of limitations while key documents were missing. Showtime and Espinoza enabled Heyman's scheme and stymied Mayweather's efforts to uncover the truth. As a result of the scheme, Mayweather has suffered enormous financial harm from his reported 1.2 billion in career purses. At least $340 million is missing and unaccounted for. Conservative investments of those funds would likely have made the sum worth several billion today. In addition, Mayweather alleges that Showtime still owes him 20 million from the 2015 Berto fight, a payout that was supposed to come from the proceeds of the Pacquiao fight. Mayweather brings this action to hold Showtime and Espinoza accountable for aiding and abetting Heyman's breaches of duty, for participating in a conspiracy to defraud him, and for direct wrongs of conversion and unjust enrichment. He seeks not only the return of his misappropriated funds, but also punitive damages to punish defendants' willful and malicious conduct and to deter similar misconduct in the future. So that is Showtime. The next one, now this is actually against Floyd Mayweather. This is Jet Set Aircraft. So they are suing for breach of contract, breach of quasi contract, unjust enrichment, account stated, open book account, fraud, and false promise. Y'all are going to see how all of this ties in there. So he's being sued for these things. Here's the allegations. Plaintiff brings forth this action to recover a sum of $105,000, roughly, due to it by each of the named defendants for private jet management services rendered to defendants at their specific request, but despite repeated demand, therefore have gone unpaid. Once again, guys, if we see what happened in that suit against uh Showtime, right? An advisor over his bank account. Proceeds are not things are not getting paid because he has these advisors over his bank accounts. So if he's saying, "Hey, pay this," and they say, "Yeah, we're going to pay it," but they're not paying it, that puts him in a tight position. In positions like these to where he's getting sued. In positions like all the other lawsuits that I see that I have pulled up being filed against him for unpaid services or not being paid. Let's see. So in or about 2000, or they typo, 2025, I want to say defendants requested that plaintiff provide the services as set forth in Exhibit A in exchange for the fee attributable to each service as set for therein. I need to see what services those are. So breach of contract against all of the defendants. Let me see if we got a Exhibit A. So here's the invoice. Oh, googly moogly. Bill to TMT Entertainment, address Floyd Mayweather. All right. So invoice was September 9th, 2025. So let's see what they got. Balance forward. So I'm assuming that he already had a balance. $62,000. Sierra Havana, I'm not sure if that's a place that they or if that's a person. 8,000. Isaiah, 5,000. Euro, 4,000. Harold, whoa, 8,000. And here's some expenses: cabin door repair, management fee, fuel, some other thing, flight planning and customs for Turks. And oh, okay, so that's where he went. All right. So let's see, it shows that he had a payment. They received a payment of $50,000, but then you have to pay the pilots. Okay, so these are the pilots that are named, I'm assuming right there. Mm-hmm. So I guess once you add up all of these, it comes out to $105,000. And so that's exactly what they're seeking right there. So this is the invoice that they're trying to get. So they offer services. They took this man out of the country. They needed fuel. They got to pay their pilots. They had to fix the cabin door. No telling what happened on that jet. Flight planning, customs, all the works. So these people are rightfully owed and their invoice to be paid. Okay. Now, for the big one that I want to show you guys is this lawsuit that he filed in New York against another person who is claiming to be his advisor. This is what happens when you put your trust in the wrong people, but people these days are manipulative. They will butter you up to get what they want. But I felt like Floyd should have done his research on this man because some things came out. And I'm sure Floyd's attorney actually, did his due diligence and researched this individual in order to write this complaint because a lot of things that came out. And I wish um, that Floyd would have consulted with an attorney before even, you know, doing business with these people, appointing people to be advisors over your bank accounts and things of that nature before you just say, hey, I want you over my finances. I wish he would have consulted with an attorney first. But here he is suing Jonah Reckness. I don't even know if that's how you say his name, but we're just going to say Jonah, as well as all of the entities that Jonah is associated with, along with anybody else, employees, agents, anybody who is associated with Jonah or any of the entities that he is associated with. The nature of this action, it arises from a multi-year fraudulent scheme orchestrated by Jonah with the assistance of and participation of other defendants that is at AL Frist or Frist Apex Ventures and Alexander. This is for the misappropriate and divert not less than $175,000. Or no, I'll take that back. $175 million of plaintiff's cash, real estate equity, aircraft, jewelry, and contractual income streams. Now we just discussed what Heyman did and Showtime did. Now he's running into the same issue over here. So, where is his money going? These people are literally stealing his money. Now, I'm not saying that there is any truth to what 50 Cent, is saying about Mayweather not being able to read or write. But if there is some type of learning disability, this can hinder you from making the right decisions, because even though you appoint somebody to be your advisor, you always want to make sure you read over your own stuff to ensure that you're not being bamboozled even by your lawyer or your advisor or your accountant or whoever you have. Beginning in or about 2017, Jonah cultivated Mr. Mayweather's, I'm going to say Floyd's, confidence. By 2024, Jonah had assumed the de facto role of Floyd's investment manager, real estate advisor, and banking liaison. So what he did is he buttered up Floyd for all those years to where Floyd said, "Okay, I want you to be my investment manager. I want you to be my real estate advisor. I want you to be the middleman. I want you to be my banking liaison." So, what did that do? That put him in control of all the accounts that Troy, that Floyd had at that time. But here's the kicker: Jonah pled guilty in the same court that I'm gonna say crucified Diddy somewhat. In that same court, he pled guilty to honest services wire fraud conspiracy. He cooperated with the United States attorney, uh, or that he been subject to significant civil litigation. So that means in 2016, this man pled guilty to honest service wire fraud conspiracy. He met Mayweather in 2017 and he said, "That's my ticket out of this mess." Why do I say that? Because here, separate from the conviction, there was a civil judgment in excess of $17 million against this man. So, what happens when you come into some Floyd Mayweather money and you owe a $17 million judgment? I'm pretty sure, and I'm just, in my opinion, I'm just drawing a conclusion based off of what I have seen thus far. He came up with a plan to get that judgment paid. That's exactly what he did. He came up with a plan to get that judgment paid. Because what else? Literally, what else? Now, this lawsuit is 23 pages, but what I want you guys to take away from this is that this man spent years buttering up Floyd to gain the trust so Floyd can trust him. And then he turned around and he routed millions of dollars into accounts and other accounts that his other the other defendants in here, like Frisk Apex Ventures, right? Specifically, there was $100 million in jewelry that was pledged to Miami jewelers for only 13 million in financing, and a large portion of that is still sitting with those dealers. Then we turn around, we have a $7.5 million wire transfer made for a supposed 12-month investment that was never invested and never returned. And then on top of that, Mayweather allegedly signed paperwork transferring, y'all listen to this. He signed paperwork transferring his 1996 Gulfstream 4 jet, not even know who the buyer was. And check this out, the sale proceeds from selling the jet was redirected towards unrelated debts. So he not debts of his, debts of other people. There was a $16.4 million loan secured against Mayweather's assets, sent only $2.5 million to Mayweather Promotions. So you're telling me $16.4 million, that was the loan that they got against his assets, but only $2.5 million went to Mayweather Promotions? Last but not least, there was a real estate settlement funds totaling $15 million, and that was diverted without his authorization. So that pretty much sums up everything. So you, Gulfstream jet gone. And what does this say? And that was November 2025. It says that Jonah calls Floyd to execute a Federal Aviation Administration bill of sale. So, like, Floyd, did you not read this? And once again, I'm not saying what 50 Cent is saying is true, but how did you not know that you were selling your jet? Separately, in or about August 2025, jewelry of Mr. Mayweather's with an asserted value of approximately $100 million was placed with two Miami dealers in exchange for approximately $13 million in payments, a fraction of the asserted value, with a substantial portion of the jewelry remaining in those dealers' possession. And y'all want to know what? I'm going to show you guys the let's see. We're just gonna look at it all. This is exhibit C. Let's see. And then we also have the distribution of proceeds letter, operation agreement, text message. There was something. Oh, here we go. The jury list. I want y'all to see the jury that is in the dealer's possession. So they, I want to say they pawned them. That's exactly what I'm going to say. They pawned his jewelry that was worth over $100 million, only to get only to get 13 million. They pawned $100 million worth of jewelry only to get 13 million. And he knows what he has, because here you go. Rose gold, titanium, diamonds. Yeah, look at this 3 carat Jacob and Co watch, Jacob Diamond, Rolex. All of that is now sitting with these Miami jewelers for $13 million. This here is the wire. These are the wires. as y'all can see. Look for yourself. Look for yourself. This is crazy. This is outright absurd. This man who pled guilty back in 2016 for the same stuff is doing it all over again. Criminal charges? I don't know. I don't see anything in the system showing that he filed any criminal charges. I don't know if they're because it shows that this happened in 2000, like between 2024 2025. I don't know if criminal charges can be brought. I'm not in New York, so that's something that I would have to research. However, when it comes to the civil portion of this, I don't think that the court is going to take this lightly. They're not. They're going to look at this man's um rap sheet and say, "Hey, you already been convicted. You owe $17 million." And once discovery comes around, it's going to be even deeper. They're going to pull up bank statements. I know they're going to audit Mr. Jonah and his associates' books to see exactly where this money was going. Like, where did y'all funnel this money to? And let's see. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That was already summed up the 23 page. So, in a nutshell, to kind of go over everything that we talked about, this man had didn't pay rent at an apartment. He's suing Showtime. He has child support, back child support, IRS liens, checks are bouncing. With that being said, Heyman and Jonah, who were appointed to be advisors, who suckered Floyd Mayweather in earning his trust, gaining trust, so that they can be put in these positions, and all they saw was dollar signs. What they did is they took his money to live off of. No, we always see Floyd Mayweather, as y'all can see on the screen. He's always throwing money up at our face. Yeah, dude, we know you got the money, but what's your bank account looking like? Why are you signing contracts without even reading, knowing exactly what you're handing over? You really need a trusted person that can sit down and look at every single aspect of your legal and financial life. The amount of liens against your assets needs to be studied. The amount of lawsuits filed against you needs to be studied. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until then, I'm out. Bye.